Director General, Budget Office of the Federation, Mr. Ben Akabueze, the Director General, Debt Management Office, Mrs. Patience Oniha, here represented by Mr. Joe Ugoala, the National Program Manager of the Partnership to Engage, Reform and Learn, Honorable Commissioners of Budget and Planning, Honorable Commissioner of Finance, Permanent Secretaries, Directors, Senior Government Officials, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome and good morning to you all. As you're all aware, the DFID-funded Partnership to Engage, Reform and Learn program, through its delivery and national teams, provides technical assistance to federal and state partners, including citizens, to improve governance in Nigeria. In supporting these processes and reforms, PERL has adopted locally led and adaptive approaches that are redefining and changing the scope of governance in Nigeria. It is on that note that this learning event that we are having this morning will showcase various governance of PFM reform tools that have been used by PERL in supporting its partners to improve governance systems and processes for effective service delivery to Nigerian citizens. The tools that will be launched, one of the tools in the PFM suite that will be launched this morning have been tested through direct engagement with partners and in consultation with their stakeholders. Today's session will provide the opportunity for participants to interact with one another, to share lessons around uptake, and provide first-hand experience and their use, purpose, and benefits. Again, I welcome you all. My name is Umaru Abu and work as the Federal Reform Manager for the PERL arm of the program. At this point in time, I'd like to invite my co-moderator to introduce himself.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Omar. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Chidebere Ibe. I am the Public Finance Management Advisor for PERL program. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Chidi. So I guess we'll dive straight into the program at this point. I would like to, in the absence of the DG, who is yet to join us, he's been caught up with an assignment at the National Assembly, and he had extended his apologies, and that he would join us in the course of the program or the webinar. So while we await him, we will then invite very quickly the National Program Manager of PERL, Mr. Ifeanyi Peters Ugoke, to please give us a welcome remark. Mr. Ugoke, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Director General Budget Office of the Federation, Director General Debt Management Office, ably represented, participants across the country. It gives me great pleasure this morning to welcome you to this webinar on the presentation of the Debt Sustainability Analysis Tool. The Debt Sustainability Analysis Tool is part of the wide range of resources that the PERL Act program is developing to strengthen processes for governance across the country. And so this is the first in the series of several resources and tools that we would present to participants for further use. As you are aware, we have been working in the area of governance, supporting both federal and state governments in Nigeria for the past 4 years, and building on the predecessor program called State Partnership for Accountability, Responsiveness, and Capability, and then of course PIFA, the federal component. So a range of tools have been deployed in all of these processes. And what we're doing is basically to pull all of them together into an asset, a resource for partners to leverage on and deploy by themselves. So we are working in some specific locations. So at the moment, we have our core partner state, which is Kano, Kaduna, and Jigawa. And then of course the hubs in Southwest, covering 6 states, but with limited intervention. And then also the hub in the Southeast, covering 5 states with, of course, limited intervention. And then the Northeast, where we provide direct support to Borno State, Yobe, and then some limited intervention for Adamawa State. So what we're doing with this tools launch is to present it to a wider stakeholder and users that are able to leverage on it and work with it. So our expectation is that this tool will be deployed by partners, especially those in debt management offices across Nigeria. With the current economic and fiscal challenges, debt sustainability has become very crucial to are able to sufficiently analyze our debts as the challenges of economic and fiscal issues continue to challenge us in this COVID era. So doing that, we're quite happy to do that, and we'll look forward to the participants leveraging on all of this and sharing it wider across governance within Nigeria and across the world. So it's our own contribution to strengthening governance, which should be accessible to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, NPM, for providing that overview and the welcome remark, which more or less sets the stage for the next for us to formally launch into the program. So at this point in time, I would like to invite the Director General of the Debt Management Office, who is ably represented here today by the Director of Policy, Strategy and Risk Management Department, Mr. Joe Ugoala, to give the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
All right, thank you so much. As the moderator has actually introduced, my name is Joe Ugoala. I'm the Director in charge of Policy, Strategy and Risk Management Department of the DMO. And of course, my DG would have loved to be here. She had planned actually to attend, but then these budget sessions that are also going on with the National Assembly and then so many activities clashed with this session. So she now asked me to sit in and then also to provide her goodwill message to the session. So essentially, on that behalf, of course, I plead for your for your understanding why she could not make it physically. So basically, wish to thank you, thank PERL, Defeat PERL, for inviting the DMO, inviting my DG, to make some comments, on this session. Essentially, of course, we appreciate what this session is, and then it's also our interest, to see that this works out at the end of the day. For the Debt Management Office, of course, we have had a long-standing relationship with Defeat, and that runs back right from the inception of the DMO, but it became so apparent, around 2007, when we thought, that we should be able to engage with the states. Okay, and then of course, Defeat, actually played a critical role in facilitating most of the programs that DMO embarked upon between 2007 and then of course 2012. So we really appreciate, and then also want to place on record, DMO's appreciation for the support that the federal government received, through the Debt Management Office, on that assignment. And of course, that assignment essentially, brought about the need to now have proper debt position at the state level. So as at end of that 2012, of course, we were able to now have up-to-date debt position of the states. So as you know, as it is from that 2011 to date right now, the federal government now keeps records of all external and domestic debt of the states, of course, in addition to the federal. So that is also, very, just to say that DFID has actually played a critical role in ensuring that government, is able to, to have a tab on the debt position of the country. So essentially, once we publish our debt, okay, some people, of course, do think it's only the federal, but now it actually includes both states, both states' external and domestic debts. And of course, that's also, that is really, a part of what DFID assisted the federal government to do. And we really show appreciation, to DFID for doing that for us. Now, on the state DSA, DFID is working on, of course, you are aware that we also engage with the states, on a regular basis. Apart from collecting the debt positions, of the states, we also engage with them, in trying to upscale their skills, and then we do that regularly. And then we actually have a department that drives that process, and then they have been, been quite active on that. So basically, the next phase, of course, from the DMO perspective, was that, there should be need, to go beyond debt recording, of course, to go into analysis, that includes debt sustainability analysis, okay, in terms of coming up with the strategies, the medium-term, strategy for the states. So we think that, this is coming at very auspicious time, more so given the fact that we are having challenges, global challenges, which of course, that has, a knock-on effect on the local domestic economy. So basically, this is coming at, at a very right time, and we are quite pleased, to be part of this. And of course, the importance of this cannot be overemphasized in relation to public finance management, and of course, as it also relates to budgeting process. So essentially, of course, the output of a debt sustainability analysis should feed in, into that public finance management, of course, into the budgeting process of the states. So we are actually pleased, to be part of this. And then it's also our expectations, that the toolkit, okay, should be able to address as much as possible, the current challenges at the state level, in terms of tracking the historical, and then being able to project, and then also being able to draw scenarios, apart from, looking at the baseline scenario of any state. It should be able, okay, to accommodate alternative scenarios, and then be able to build scenarios, that will also inform decisions, okay, by the, by each state. So we are, we are quite, hopeful, and also very, very, happy and glad, to be part of this, and also, to say that, to give kudos, to the, to what PERL, and then, is doing under the FITS program. Okay, so basically, in closing, I wish to thank everybody, and then thank PERL, and the organizer of this program, and also to wish the participants very productive and stimulating session under this program, and also to ask them, to also, enjoin them to feel free to ask questions where they think, there may not be, better clarity, as the session goes. So we are happy to be part of this, and then we look forward, to getting across to further engagements, as time goes on. So on this note, I thank you so much for inviting the DMO, and then I wish you a pleasant session as we go along. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe. That was some thought.
Any problem? One is not getting this sound any longer.
Hi, I think we may have lost Umaru.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's like Umaru is having some challenges with his network connection. We want to thank Dr. Joe Ugoala for the excellent presentation and felicitations that he has given to the event. We're going to move on to the next presentation, which is going to be the technical presentation for this event, to be delivered by Dr. Adam Akuta. Dr. Akuta is an international debt management expert who has supported debt management reforms for Nigerian governments and other countries across Africa. He's going to take us through the DSA toolkit, which we are launching today. And at this juncture, I would like to invite Dr. Akuta to make his presentation. Dr. Akuta, please.
Imagine, such people that are Akuta.
Dr. Akuta?
Yes.
Okay, you have the floor.
Okay.
Doc, are you there? You may share your screen. Or Ayo, could you help him out?
Okay.
Ayo, could you help him out and put up his presentation if he's having challenges from his end?
Right. I mean, okay. If you can hear me, what I'm seeing, my problem is that the main presentation is not appearing in my list. So normally that shouldn't be a problem.
But since Ayo has the presentation, he may, he could put it on the screen so that we can, good.
And he will be able to control the flow of the presentation.
Yes, he should, as long as he
is showing now.
Yes, this is from Ayo's screen. Please, you may proceed.
Okay.
Ayo, please, let's have your screen.
I can start. The presentation is on the screen already.
Okay. But it's not in full mode. Oh, okay. So it's not in the full display mode. Will you be walking through the screen one by one as I talk to it? Hello?
Ayo, can you tell him how you're going to run this so that he will know what to do, please? I believe that when you finish with one slide, you say next slide, then you can touch,
right,
go to the next
okay.
slide. Yeah.
Okay, so please, next slide. Right. Okay, so I will actually be brief on this presentation because really this is not a training session. It's more to give participants an understanding of the nature of the DSA tool, the main features, with an overview that just gives you a flavor of the kind of materials that the DSA tool uses to do the analysis. And then I will conclude briefly with benefits of using the DSA tool by states. Next. Okay. Now, the main features of the DSA tool. The DSA tool for states is an adaptation of the medium-term debt strategy tool developed in Microsoft Excel by the IMF and the World Bank from the early 2000s. As you can imagine, developing such a tool is a major technical exercise. And so really, it was not necessary for PERL to develop everything from scratch. Besides, the IMF World Bank tool is fairly well known by many people in the debt management field. However, we needed to make some adaptations. Next. Now, the main objective of the adaptations we made, okay, the main objective of the adaptations that we made was to make the tool easy to use. When you come to see the tool, the actual Excel, you realize that it is very, it has many worksheets, and the original tool, the data input is scattered all over the place. And even to see the results, you have to really know your way around. So it was quite difficult. The objective of the adaptations we made mainly was to simplify the input and the ability to run the simulations and see the results quickly. Next. Next. Okay. So to start with, we made sure that the amount of input data required by users was reduced to the barest minimum and brought together in just a couple of worksheets, so that anybody who comes to the worksheet, even with some minimum training, they will just find it easy to enter the few data items required and run the simulation. As an example of one of the changes we made in order to make it relevant to the Nigerian states was the need to adapt the ratios to be something that would be meaningful. For instance, in the original tool, the ratios, the debt sustainability ratios were expressed in relation to the GDP, the gross domestic product. But as we all know, many states are yet to have a fully functional GDP measuring on an annual basis. However, the total revenues available to the states are something that are easily identifiable, even including the IGR that are generated by the states. So this measure was used instead of the GDP in order to determine debt sustainability. Next. Next screen. Okay, right. Now, this, can you go back? Go back one screen. Okay. Yeah, because I need to show this screen because debt sustainability is not just a matter of doing the analysis kind of in isolation. You have to be aware of the general state of debt, the level of debt, and the situation of the state, the various, and even the history. So part of the materials put together for the debt sustainability analysis includes the debt profile. Can you go to the next screen? Yes. Yes, this screen provides a debt profile using the data for the past, debt data and revenues for the past 5 years, and generates ratios that gives you some measures of performance with regard to debt by the state. Is based on various benchmarks which actually are defined, especially now with the borrowings from the federal government in the past few years. They have adopted certain measures of debt sustainability, which in fact we have now also incorporated in the medium-term debt strategy. Next. Okay, so this is actually one of the kind of basic worksheets of the medium-term debt strategy tool, because as I indicated earlier, this worksheet allows the user to define the debt data in a succinct manner and something that is relevant also for states. As you can see, for instance, under at the bottom there, under domestic debt, you can see that it refers to federal government support, pay arrears, and then the various bond options that are available for, may be available for states in order to borrow domestically, in addition to the usual external debt, which is at the top of the table. Next. Okay, now the second key element of the debt sustainability analysis is the alternative borrowings strategies. This actually, like as you can see there, it says strategy 2. There are actually 4 options available for you to define different strategies. The idea is to have a combination of options in one strategy that allows you now to compare performance of the various strategies against one another, so that the policymakers can make decisions in an informed manner based on the various alternatives. As I will explain later when we go to the next sheet, it is not just enough to have the numerical data in terms of judging different borrowing options. It's not just the performance of the borrowing options in numerical terms that determine whether or not a particular source of borrowing is satisfactory. You also have to consider the requirements of the project, the past performance history, or the approaches or attitudes of various donors with regard to project management and so forth. So, however, the numerical input for such a decision is a key element that you need to consider, that a state or policymakers need to consider. Next. Okay, so this sheet shows the kind of measures that are used to determine debt sustainability. There is the liquidity ratios and the debt to revenue ratios, as I was indicating earlier. You can see that at the bottom of this screen, you have two key measures. And in fact, they are similar to the measures we saw for debt profile. This is something that would not have been possible to provide in the generic IMF World Bank original tool. So this has been made very specific to Nigerian states. Next. Yeah, so that was a brief overview just to give you a flavor. Obviously, as I said, the workbook itself for doing the analysis is fairly large, containing many worksheets. I just gave you an insight into a few of the worksheets. So I will kind of focus in the last part of my presentation on the benefits of using the DSA tool by states. The DSA toolkit comprises a set of linked MS Excel templates that are for relatively simplistic data. That the idea is we want to avoid the situation where on many occasions people go for training to do debt sustainability analysis, but when they come back to their office, they have difficulty because the amount of data input, even when they understand the amount of data they have to push around is so much. So we have focused on simplifying the Excel templates for data entry, and then with one button you can now do an analysis. So within like 5 minutes, somebody can set up and just run the simulation and see the results and try various scenarios in order to be, for debt managers to be able to give appropriate advice to their government. Next. Okay, now an important aspect of this tool is that it wasn't just developed in the abstract. This was developed based on learning from various technical assistance interventions in several states in the country. The PERL, and as well as the people who developed this tool had a lot of contacts and experience and exposure to the issues and situations in various states. So these were taken into account, especially, for instance, in formulating the debt profile to collect the data. As you know, in computing, garbage in, garbage out. If you provide the wrong data or incorrect, inaccurate data into the template, you just get less meaningful results. So the emphasis has been to make sure that the data collection and input into the tool is satisfactory. So this has been a way to apply all the experience we have gathered working with the states. Next. Okay, so, right. In fact, these various points made here focus on the fact that this is a guidance tool that allows policymakers in states to be able to make relevant decisions based on liquidity and solvency ratios that are well defined and easy to understand. Decision makers can appreciate the impact of various borrowing decisions or even the options they have. And there are various macro fiscal scenarios. In fact, one of the key elements of the tool is a way to do some form of a shock, to provide some shocks to the system. As we know, for instance, in the past few years, we've had major currency devaluations, as well as sharp revenue falls. Even right now, we are in the middle of kind of economic crisis based arising from the coronavirus pandemic. So you can see that it's actually, we have found that it is not abstract when you talk about shocks, because we always tend to assume that the economy will be normal, things will be coasting along comfortably. But if you don't consider the possibility that things could go very wrong, and then make the system sensitive to such situations. If you just assume you're always going to be able to borrow and your revenue amounts are always going to be steady, then you could easily work yourself into a difficulty. So the toolkit is designed to make policymakers take decisions that are very sensitive and smart, and so enable them to
Are you there? We've lost you. We can't hear you. We lost you. Are you back?
Yes, Omar.
I think we lost him. Probably some network challenges.
It
Omar.
like you lost me for some time, right?
Yes, we did. Please, you may continue from the slide. Yes, we lost you for.
It's like
yes.
You lost me for some time.
Yes, we did. You may proceed. Go ahead. Go ahead. We're listening.
Umaru, can I suggest if Adam doesn't make it back, we could move on to give an overview of what is actually in the toolkit that we're going to be releasing.
Okay, I guess since we've lost him and I guess he's almost done, maybe we should go ahead and give that overview, pending when we have him back. So Chris, you want to take us through that?
Yep, yes, I will. Ayo, I think you're going to bring up the resource guide overview and just scroll through that whilst I'm describing what is in the toolkit.
Okay.
Okay, so Adam has given a very useful presentation on some of the aspects of the debt profile and the debt sustainability analysis. Once you see the toolkit yourself, you'll see some of those Excel models and Excel sheets that Adam gave in his presentation. What we effectively have in our toolkit is four main elements. Firstly, we've got the Excel-based template for preparing the state government debt profile. This is the backwards-looking presentation of historical debt stock and debt servicing statistics and presenting some of the ratios around liquidity and solvency. But then we have another Excel-based model for preparing the medium-term debt strategy. This can be used to model future trajectory of public debt and public debt servicing across a number of different scenarios. As Adam mentioned, for example, devaluation or moving from domestic to foreign debt, or potentially moving from longer maturity to a shorter maturity, or the other way around. So that is the second Excel model. Finally, we've got a Word document template. So once the Excel modeling has been done, the various outputs and tables would be inserted into a report template, and the analysis and recommendations would be written, and that would be presented as the debt sustainability analysis. So those are the three main templates that we've developed that will be in the toolkit that we'll be releasing. There is obviously a comprehensive guidance note as well on how to use the Excel templates, some guidance on how to write the report, and we've also included in the toolkit an example from the fictitious Wazobi estate. So again, some of the screens, some of the Excel outputs that you saw in Adam's presentation have actually come from those example documents. These are useful as it gives the user, the states, the debt management departments in states, it gives them an indication of what the final product should look like after they've populated the Excel models and written the reports. So we will be releasing those as the DSA toolkit to all the participants on the call shortly after this call, and obviously we have a facility to be able to support states as they have any questions or challenges using the DSA tools. We would also recommend that the training in some of the Excel modeling is also undertaken by states. It very much helps states to be able to use the Excel models that we've been developing. So that's an overview. There's a document as well that I is scrolling through that summarizes what I've just said. So we'll be releasing the toolkit to all participants shortly.
Thank you very much, Chris. I believe you're done.
All done. All
right. Chidi, you want to take it over from here, or I should continue? Is Chidi there?
Yeah, thank you very much, Umar. Thank you very much, Chris, and Dr. Akabueze for the presentations. At this juncture, we want to go ahead and invite the head of the Debt Management Department of Kaduna State that have used this tool for a number of years to share their experience with the participants today. So may I have the privilege and honor to invite Dr. Caleb Hayuk from Kaduna State to make his presentation. You're welcome, sir. Dr. Caleb, are you on? Well, it looks like we've lost Dr. Caleb. So while we wait for him to rejoin the meeting, we can now take questions and answers. And them from there, and people give the appropriate responses to your questions. Let me repeat, send your questions on the chat room, and we'll take it from there and give responses to them. Thank you.
Given, if I may, to make it a little much more interactive and interesting, please, if you do have very burning questions that to, lend your voice to. You may just indicate and we'll quickly call you. You have less than a minute, 30 seconds actually, to ask those questions to provide room for others to, for others to also ask their questions. While we await, the questions on the chat room, please, if you have burning questions, please indicate, and then we will unmute you, and then we will hear your voice. Again, we welcome all the honorable commissioners who have joined us. We welcome the commissioners for finance from the states, as well as the commissioners for budget and planning. Some permanent secretaries are here with us, directors, and some other senior government officials at the state level and also at the federal level. I think, Ayo, may you please unmute people so that they can speak? I think it's high time we unmute so those who want to quickly speak, please, because there's a deafening silence here. Can you unmute everyone and those?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
If you have your questions, please quickly go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Introduce yourself and go into your question, please, very quickly.
Great. Okay, my name is Joe. Ugoala from the Debt Management Office, Abuja.
Okay.
The federal.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, of course, we appreciate what has been done so far. And then of course it's quite, it has been simplified, compared with what World Bank, IMF, has, or rather what they have. So essentially, we just want to, clarification here for the benefit of the states now, is to find out on what basis were the thresholds set. Because we saw somewhere where you have the debt service to revenue, and then we have 40% as the threshold or something. So it would be nice to understand the basis for the thresholds that were set, more like the benchmarks that were set, for the thresholds. And then the other one has to do with the shocks. Does the template have some shocks incorporated, which are standard, or are there, customized that, that the states can, the flexibility, is there any flexibility where the states can introduce their own shocks, or is the system, does the system have its own standard shocks, that can be applied, on the data? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Joe. Maybe I should read out except there's someone who wants to speak, I will read out a number of questions that are here already. One says, this is from Solomon Peter. He wants to know, when running debt service sustainability, should I use gross FAC or net FAC allocations? Yes, there's another one who says, I'm just wondering how easy it is for the template to be adapted to the World Bank or IMF template. I believe our panelists will respond to that. And so I think we have 3 questions already. Over to Chris Rowe, are you there? You may just respond very quickly to those while we wait while we read out more questions.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, thanks, Umar. So the questions from the Federal Debt Management Office around the ratios. Adam obviously developed the ratios. I'm not sure, based on historical ratios, I'm not sure if they're ratios that you have issued or ratios that have been agreed elsewhere, but the tools themselves, these ratios can be modified. So if they're not fixed, so if DMO or anybody else suggests that the ratios need to be changed, then we can actually change them, or users can change them quite easily in the model. In terms of shocks, yes, the model allows for a number of different shocks, and these are what generate the different scenarios. So we have an exchange rate shock, we have a shock, a macroeconomic shock, I believe, we have a revenue shock, several other shocks. So these different shocks can be applied to the different strategies. So obviously, if you've got a situation where you have a higher external debt stock and there's a exchange rate devaluation, then this has a bigger impact on you. So you can generate shocks based on a number of different scenarios. In terms of gross or net FAC, for virtually everything, gross FAC should be used, even from an accounting perspective. When you're accounting for revenue and expenditure, gross FAC is the revenue inflow into the state, and the deductions for debt servicing, for foreign debt servicing, and other deductions at source are all actually expenditures. So across the board, really, you should always be recording in your accounts the gross FAC revenues as opposed to net.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris. Well, just to inform everyone that these presentations will be sent to everyone who has registered. Don't also forget that the essence of this launch is also to showcase and to also share with all, so that lessons will be learned, and we'll carry on with these products to improve on our debt management. I would like to bring the attention of the panelists to another question. This is from Tunde Adejumo. He's asking that, he says, in using the template for the DSA, where is the place of IGR? Chris, you want to respond to that, given that you're the only member of the panel that is still here, except any other person wants to pick up from there. But in the meantime, please.
Sorry, Umar, can you repeat the question?
Okay, the question is, using the template for the DSA, yeah, where is the place of IGR? And there's another question, which I believe this is from Mohammed Ghana Ibrahim, to the DMO. Mr. Joe, this might be for you. It says, will DMO accept DSA prepared on this template? So after you, Chris, when you're done responding to Tunde's question, Mr. Joe can also respond to this. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, I think
also he can pick up questions if he wants to. I think he's back.
Yes, I can actually answer the IGR question.
Okay, all right, over to you then.
Okay, actually the template specifically distinguishes ratios that relate to the full total revenue, and specifically for ratios that relate to internally generated revenue. For instance, domestic borrowing, you would want to relate that to IGR, because that will show the performance of projects that support ability to repay your domestic debt. So the ratios are actually divided into two: total debt to total revenue, and specifically domestic debt interest to IGR. So there's actually a major role played by IGR. And I think, as everybody knows, states want to encourage the growth of their IGR, because that will impact their ability to independently execute projects in the state without depending too much on the FAC revenue.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Joe, please, could you respond to the question? If DMO will accept DSA prepared on this template? I guess it's putting you on the spot, but I'm sure you.
Yeah, you're right, really. You're right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, as far as DMO is concerned, we are for any program or any tool that will improve that will improve public debt management effectiveness at the state level. Basically, this tool, of course, comes in handy, okay, to assist the states, in managing their public debt, and of course, in advising their various governments. So DMO will not be averse, in as much as, of course, it's adding value to what the states do. So basically, we won't be any problem, as far as the DMO office is concerned. So basically, we endorse this. I mean, there's no problem, even though we've not critically looked. We're just seeing it for the first time. But essentially, I'm aware that PERL has been working on this, over the period. But so I guess it must have been properly fine-tuned before coming to now demonstrate it to all of us. So basically, the DMO will not be against any tool that is provided to enhance public debt management at the state level. So we are for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I can also add to what Mr. Ugoala said, because, like he said, we have worked within PERL to develop this tool, but now that it's going beyond the normal catchment area, it will be useful to interact with staff at the DMO, technical staff, and even policy making staff, to kind of make sure that they understand, because independently they often go to advise or work with the state. So it should be useful for both PERL and the DMO to be on the same page as regard to the features of the tool and any aspects that may require fine-tuning, for instance, from their point of view.
Yeah,
all right.
That's fine. That's fine, really. I think that also would help. If we get to fully appreciate the provisions of the tool, and then of course that will also assist us. Since we engage regularly with the states, it would be nice also to carry us along in this before full-scale implementation is rolled out. Thank you.
Okay. We have a number of questions here from Olujimi Ige. The question goes thus: is it not possible for the NGF, I believe that's the Nigeria Governors Forum, or other bodies to get a unique version for all states in the Federation for ease of comparison and judgment? And then we have Chuwike Uba. Question is, in furtherance to the question asked from the DMO staff, I would like to know what informed the increase in the ratio of debt to revenue to about 40%. I thought that the World Bank debt revenue threshold is 22%. Then from Ahmed Garba Awal, is the FAC revenue, is the FAC revenue means only steady and regular revenues, excluding non-revenue? Well, I mean, I didn't get that very clearly. But those are the two immediate questions. But okay, I think we have others here. Just a minute. Just a minute, please. Let me just run through. Okay, I think that's about it. That's about the questions for now. Before that, I think Adam will go ahead and run through, those final. There's a particular section of his presentation that people are asking for him to revisit. He will run through. But before then, Chris and Adam, if you may respond to those questions I just read out before you go into the presentation. Very quickly, please.
Maybe
Chris?
you might want to repeat the couple of questions.
Okay, just a minute. One, well, I think this is for the NGF. It said, in furtherance to the question asked from the DMO staff, I would like to know what informed the increase in the ratio of debt to revenue to about 40%. I thought that the World Bank debt to revenue threshold is about 22%. And then the other question is it not possible for the NGF or other bodies to get a unique version for all states in the Federation for ease of comparison and judgment? Then there's another one again from Chukbi K. Uba that says, how do you factor in contingent liabilities in determining the total debts? It is clear that in most states and even at the national level, contingent liabilities are not part of the debt figure. Then from Ahmad Garbalawal again, it says, can the states use its peculiar baseline assumptions, or it must use the general assumptions adapted generally? Yes, that's about it. If you listen, you can go ahead and respond, please.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm respond. I actually can answer the question regarding the 40%.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that in 2016, 2017, when the federal government came out with bailout provisions for the states, there was a fiscal policy that was established for the states to comply with in order to benefit from the bailout. And so one of the provisions is actually they made provisions for their liquidity ratios as well as their debt to revenue ratios. So the percentages were actually provided in this bill that was agreed upon between the states and the federal government. So it's not actually, it wasn't done in relation to the usual IMF provisions, because that's for external debt. But when the federal government went into an arrangement with the states, they established these thresholds.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please can we, at this juncture, recognize the DG Budget Office of the Federation, who has just joined us, Dr. Ben Akabueze. You're welcome, sir. And while you were away, we had continued, and hoping that when you come in, you can make your own remarks. I don't know if you want to do that now before we continue.
Please go ahead in due course. If I have any remarks, I'll make. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So the panelists can continue with response to questions. Chris, do you want to respond to the question about harmonizing these two with the NGF?
Yeah, I mean, I think NGF are obviously collating a significant amount of data on state level PFM, budget performance reports, budgets, accounts. NBS obviously also compiles statistics and publishes, I think, on a quarterly basis, state level debt, state level IGR. So I'm not sure at the moment whether NGF do actually compile any of these ratios for states, but obviously they will have most of the data in order to run those simulations. So as I said, I'm not sure if they are doing that at the moment, but certainly there is data out there that is that can be used to simulate particularly the ratios for the states on a historical basis. I think in terms of contingent liabilities and contractor arrears, certainly on the historical debt profile template, there are data entry rows both for other liabilities, which may include contingent liabilities, and also for contractor arrears and other arrears. I think one of the key principles about using these tools is that, and this goes beyond just debt management, debt sustainability, is when you produce a set of figures, whether it's historical, forwards-looking, the important thing is you have to provide the relevant written analysis as well to explain the figures, to explain what is included and what is not included. So, for example, if you were to estimate contingent liabilities and include them within your debt stocks, you would have to very clearly explain why you've done that, what are the significant liabilities and what are the risks to government. I'm not 100% sure Adam would have to answer in terms of whether you can include contractor arrears and contingent liabilities in the forwards-looking debt sustainability analysis templates. Again, these models have been developed based on standard IMF World Bank templates. They're Excel-based models. They can be adapted to the specific requirements of states. Obviously, that requires some degree of, or quite a high degree of expertise in Excel. But these are models that have been developed and used over a number of years across a number of states based on the needs of those states. We're making these models available, and states may use them as is, or they may adapt them to the specific requirements they have.
Thank you, Chris. Omar, is there any other questions that's not been taken?
Yeah, just one more. One very quick question. This is from Ibrahim Abacha Umar. He wants to know that while engaging with the tool on the analysis, can citizens run the analysis independently for advocacy? That's the question. I believe this is largely from the demand side. So
I'd say to that, I mean, if the data is available, there is no reason why citizens can't run the analysis themselves. You know, if the data is available publicly, which a lot of it should be, then yes, there's no harm in running those themselves, and it would give citizens a better opportunity to interact with government during the budget preparation process and potentially during the publication of financial statements. If they're able to do the analysis themselves, it gives them the opportunity to ask the right questions of government to ensure that government is borrowing at the right levels, is not getting itself into too much debt, potentially overburdening future generations with debt servicing obligations. So I think these skills and the analysis, yes, is not specific just to government themselves. It is something that is applicable within the public domain as well.
all right, thank you very much. And so, Adam, you're there. I think you want to quickly walk us through one or two of your slides so that we can wrap up.
Okay, because I think I broke up where I was trying to explain the benefits. So maybe if you can just go back to the last section of the yeah, so here, go back to the beginning. I will just quickly, I wouldn't belabor the points I've already made, but let me just, yes, so start from here. So as in fact, Chris explained that the suite consists of several tools that are used together. So that's actually very important. And so when you get the package, you need to actually consider debt sustainability is a holistic tool that you can use to make policy decisions. Now, as also we have just explained, the tool was developed based on experiences with working with various states to assess their debt sustainability. And so this, we expect, will be applicable to many other states. So go to the next slide. Good. Okay, because I think this is where I was that my line actually broke. So now I think here the emphasis has been to say that this is a tool to guide not just debt management in isolation, but within a macro fiscal setting, so that the scenarios that you define should reflect other aspects of your budgeting process, for instance, and you want to have a sense of value for money, because resources from donors and external sources, for instance, bilateral, multilateral, often may not reflect your priorities. So you need to have an assessment that enables you, even when, for instance, you go for higher cost, would that facilitate your project so that you can recover revenue that will enable you to carry out adequate debt servicing in the future. So it's a tool for thinking, and a lot of it is what if analysis. So that's the basic point being made here. And actually then the presentation ends. Go to the next slide. Yes, so thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you very much, Adam. I believe we have done justice to the whole program. This is also to inform everyone that all the presentations and links to the tools, as well as the videos, will be shared with each and every one of you, and of course, a wider audience, even those who did not participate. The essence of this is, to continue to strengthen, the debt management process nationwide. At this point, if we still have the DG with us, we would like to very warmly welcome him again, and also, as always, listen to his very insightful thoughts on what we're doing here today. DG, are you there, sir?
Yes, I am, and I do thanks for joining this very late, but I also want to put on record that the invitation to me for join this webinar was only at 8:52 a.m. this morning, to join at 10 a.m. And so I got off from something else that I was doing. I decided to join, just because of the interest that this subject matter best for me, and I guess for our country. Unfortunately, I didn't listen to the the full presentation of the toolkit, and so I am a bit handicapped in terms of speaking to it specifically. But I clearly, debt sustainability must be a matter of great concern to all governments in the country. Now, at the state, the subnational and the federal levels, given the pressure on public debt, in the recent past, which will only get worse with the imminent recession brought upon us by COVID-19. When we hit recession in 2016, 2017, a key part of the strategy was to borrow and spend our way out of the recession, and then get into a phase of financial consolidation and pursue revenue growth strategies. And the hope, okay, the hope had been that that we will all have a bit of time for some recovery and growth before we are faced with any possible recession again, which typically will be in we were projecting like a 10-year cycle before we can get back to this sort of situation. Unfortunately, we have been hit with one much sooner than that, and we now have to try and again pursue the strategy of spending our way out of the recession, with the implications for growth, further growth in public debt. So as we look at this, the toolkit, the two important issues that I would like for us to pay attention to, and especially at the state government level, any debt sustainability analysis that does not take into account, debts to contractors and other suppliers may only give the wrong result, because it will seem that the state governments especially are resorting to that sort of financing, simply owing contractors and all of that, and those debts are mounting, especially with the greater difficulty in raising bank debt or debt from the capital markets. For good reason also, many state governments are resorting to to bridge the gap in provision of public goods and services through PPPs. But many of these PPPs have significant contingent liabilities, and some of which have even crystallized. But then, to the extent to which those are captured in the budgets and the fiscal accounts of the states, is then what we need to pay attention to at the federal level. With effect from 2021, we are stepping up our focus on contingent liabilities, and we will be shortly, at the latest, very early next week, be issuing a comprehensive circular on dealing with with that. For some of you who follow what we're doing here, you realize that we have recently issued a circular on tax expenditures, actually then quantifying them, bringing them into the budget, and making them more transparent. The other thing that I think needs to be paid attention to in the DSA for states is really the debt service to revenue ratio. For us at the federal government, for instance, whatever other DSA that you apply, our debt looks sustainable until you get to the debt service to revenue ratio, where clearly we have hit levels that raise concerns about sustainability. So I hope that at the state level, this is something that people also begin to focus on. And so these are basically my comments, and once again to underscore the importance of this subject matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG, for those very insightful and thought-provoking contribution. As always, we look up to you to provide a lot of guidance on the public financial management system of the country. Your experience comes to bear at all times. Again, we apologize for gagging you into this, but we cannot do without you. That's the reality of the issue, and that's why we center a lot of our engagements around you and around the office, which you have so excellently run. The email we sent, this is the first of 3 other tools that will be launched in the PFM suite. And of course, it will be centered around you and around your office again. And we hope that we'll engage further so that it will be smoother than today's launch. Thank you again for the partnership, and thank you for the continuous support in addressing the challenges that we face as a country. I think on that note, I would like to. I believe all the questions have been answered.
I see there's, sorry, Umar, I see there's a question. Someone just popped now.
Okay.
Directed to the DG Budget Office. What is the FGM on capturing grants, subsidies, and other waivers as part of budget revenues and expenditures? Currently, such waivers and so on are not recognized as government revenue, and this negates the principle of transparent and accountable budgeting. Well, that's what I was just, the waivers. First of all, since 3 years ago, we've started capturing grants, that's grants that we receive, grants and donations in the budget, okay? Subsidies, we've also been, recognizing in the budget. I mean, well, at least in the fiscal framework. The 2 key subsidies have been the subsidy on PMS, on petrol, and the subsidy on power. And we have been capturing the cost of that in the budget, somewhat, or at least in the fiscal framework. Because like the subsidy on PMS is a federation level subsidy, okay? But the waivers, waivers, tax holidays, exemptions, tax exemptions, all of those collectively, the technical term for them is tax expenditures. So that's what I was speaking to earlier on when I said that from 2021, we intend to now begin to, like, those revenues, account for them gross and show those waivers, exemptions, and so on, and holidays as expenditures, tax expenditures. I mean, it doesn't, your net revenue will be embedded. It more transparently reflects it, and then draws attention to what the revenues could have been without those waivers and exemptions, and you're able to then make sure that this is transparent. Everybody sees what those waivers and exemptions are actually costing the country, and then we can have a discussion about the benefits of those waivers, whether they justify the cost thereof. That's what I spoke about earlier. We have issued that circular, and we're currently working on the framework for implementation with effect from the 2021 fiscal year.
Thank you very much, DG. Any comments from you, Adam, from Joe, from the DMO? Any comments as we round up?
Okay, from the DMO, from me, just to comment, comment PERL, for what they've done, and also to look forward to further engagement. I don't know, someone promised, I think Ugoala or who promised to share the tool, with the debt management office shortly. I don't know how soon that would be. So so it would be nice, for us to also look at it, and then you give us time, then you may likely be able to share that with us, so that we review and then make possible comments. So on behalf of the DMO, so we commend you guys, and also to look forward to working with you, and then also to enjoy our states, to embrace this tool. It's quite simple. From what I've seen, looks very, very simple and user friendly, and then it's something that can be improved upon by the time we also look at it, to make it much more robust. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Chris Rowe, you have any parting words?
No, I think again, as I said in my overview, this is a model that's been developed and has been tested and used in states. It's open source. It's in Excel. It can be modified and adapted to the specific needs of states or the changing future environment within public financial management. I think there was one specific question that may have gone unanswered around why we've removed GDP as one of the benchmark ratios. As Adam said in his presentation, a lot of states don't have up-to-date GDP data at state level, and certainly not projections for GDP. Therefore, the model has been adapted to use revenue as the denominator in some of these liquidity and solvency ratio analysis statistics. That's it for me.
Sorry, Mark, can I just jump in there and just make a comment?
All right, DG, always, please.
Because I hear Chris, but I think the states should be encouraged towards good practice or whatever practice. I think because this is going to begin to provide the disincentive for the states that have made the commendable effort to actually begin to compute the state gross product or the level GDP, rather than discount GDP because some states aren't doing the right thing. I think that we have to find a way of keeping it in the mix, and that should hopefully incentivize the states that are not currently doing so to do so, because the benefit and the use of that goes beyond just debt sustainability analysis. It's certainly, and I speak as someone who been back in my days at Lagos State. We were the first. In 2008, we just decided, look, we're going to start computing our state level GDP. Back then, it was considered, we were short of being accused of treason. We were told by the federal authorities then that it was not our business and we had no whatever. And we stood our ground and we asked them to show us any law that forbade us from doing so. They couldn't. When they now realized that they couldn't be dissuaded, that's when the Ministry of National Planning then and NBS embraced the idea and to work, collaborate, and to lead the effort to do so. Unfortunately, that has taken much longer, but I think that states should be encouraged and supported. And maybe that's an area of support that PERL Act should consider in going forward, rather than abandon this because some states are not doing so. Thank you. Those were my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Dizzy. We'll be coming back to you again for your parting shots. But before then, I would like to invite Adam. You have any comments?
Yes, in fact, I was even going to, because this actually ties in with the idea of harmonization between PERL, DMO, and of course the Ministry of Finance and Budget Office. Because if this is going nationwide, we need to actually enhance it to provide harmonization. Somebody, in fact, had earlier stated that you would want to be able to compare performances among the states. And so on the question of GDP specifically, I can say that there is nothing in our own adaptation that prevents adding GDP as an element. In fact, actually, within the template, we are even capturing GDP where it is available. It's just that it has not currently been used in the ratios. As I said, the ratios were actually defined to comply with the Fiscal Responsibility Act that was defined. So I will support the DG that we should expand the debt sustainability measures to have the revenues as well as the GDP. The two are not incompatible. In fact, they could reinforce each other.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah, Omar.
Yes, please, Chidi.
Just to say that since the Kaduna presenter is unable to make his presentation, that participants are going to get his presentation amongst the package of presentations and materials they are going to get after this. Just to...
Absolutely. If the national program manager is there, he can give us his parting shot. If are you there?
Yeah, yes, I am, Omar. Thank you very much. Again, just to say thanks to all the participants, but especially to the DG Budget Office of the Federation for responding at short notice. So apologies again if the invitation came this early. And the fact that despite your tight schedule, you were able to join us for this session. Thank you very much, sir. Again, we would like to also thank and then also emphasize the role of DMO in harmonization. I heard what Adam said, and I think that's a very important thing because there are probably different versions going around, and that would be good if they are harmonized and would have something that DMO could use to share with states. So but I encourage everyone that participated to first of all test it, populate it, test it, and see what it brings out for them. And then if there is areas of improvement, we could make recommendations for areas of improvement. Every tool, every resource is available for use and can actually be improved upon as we utilize it. So thank you very much, everyone.
All right, so now for the big masquerade, the DG, your parting shot, sir.
Man, no masquerades here, hopefully. But anyway, thank you all again, DFID, PERL Act, for your continuing commitment and support to the PFM reform agenda for Nigeria, and especially the holistic approach of engaging not just with the federal government or with a handful of states, but with the entire federation. As is often said, the strength of a chain is only is determined by the weakest link thereof. And so while all the states are not at the same place in terms of PFM, the approach has to be, to the extent possible, no state left behind. And so initiatives like the community of practice and all of these simplified tool kits that minimize the investments in terms of resources and time for states to embrace some of these good practices, I think basically very helpful in the way forward. And so I'd like to just commend you and encourage you, and that's why I am usually supportive of your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. I also like to use this opportunity. These days, yeah, they are dragging you left, right, front, and center. And we have the PFM action plan that is still hanging before you. I just want to use this opportunity to say there's a need to spare some time so that we can engage and move that process forward. I know you have made all the efforts, but you've been held down. We're hoping that by next week, from the public commitment we'll get here today, we'll engage with that process.
We will, subject to when my masters at the National Assembly let me go.
Thank you very much. I also want to bring the attention to everyone as well. Of course, some states are asking for support. Yes, we have the locations where PERL is actually working, Kaduna, Kanu, Jigawa, and of course through the regional hubs in the southeast, southwest, and the northeast. But we also have the continuing support that we offer government through the Committee of Practice for Budget and Planning Commissioners. And so on that note, I'd like to invite Chidebere. Chidebere, you have any parting shots?
Thank you, Mark. Just to say thank you to everyone, especially the DG and the DG Budget Office and the DG Debt Management Office for attending, and all our invitees for making time to come, and of course the panelists who have provided the technical support to this process. So we'll be calling on you shortly again for other tools, other PFM tools we are going to be launching in the future. So thank you very much. I want everyone who wants to get the presentations and materials to leave their email addresses on the chat room so we can pick them up. I will also send an email address where you can send your email address and request, so we'll forward the materials to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chidi. I want to, at this point, thank the Honorable Commissioners of Budget and Planning, that's from the states, Honorable Commissioners of Finance, permanent secretaries, directors, and other senior government officials, those in the private sector, development agencies, friends of PERL and DFID who have joined us here this morning stroke afternoon. We look forward to engaging with you subsequently as we look at also launching the other tools in the PFM suite. So on behalf of DFID PERL, I would like to say a very good afternoon to all of you, and we hope to see you again. Ayo, can we have the national anthem, please? bless you all. Thank you.
All right.